Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing amazing. My name is Shani Boudreau. I am a Western Sidereal astrologer, and today we're going to be filming a whole video about eclipse season coming up from March 24th until April 8th. And so we have an eclipse season coming up in Pisces and in Virgo in Sidereal. And we're going to go over eclipse season, generally speaking, what that means for all of us. And also, we're going to go over all 12 rising signs and understand how these eclipses will be affecting you guys individually, knowing your rising sign so that you can understand which area of life will be kind of in the hot seat during eclipse season, where you're going to be experiencing some big karmic major changes for the period of the eclipse, not just the eclipse, but the period of the next 6 months, because eclipses announce destined and karmic changes that kind of lay out the foundations for the upcoming 6 months. So it's a huge time of the year. And so I really want to get into this, and I'm very excited to film this more of a personalized video so that people can get value and hopefully have some sort of guidance out of this video. So let's get started right away. I have two disclaimers. Number one, I am a Western sidereal astrologer, meaning I do not use the tropical algorithm, which is used by basically like 90% of astrologers in the Western world. And so with sidereal, it is a system that follows the actual movements of the stars and bases its zodiac wheel on that progressive movement. And thus, it is not the same as the tropical algorithm. So some of the placements will differ from what you might see online with the tropical system. For example, in the tropical system, the eclipses will be happening in Aries and Libra. In sidereal, that will not be the case. They are happening in Pisces and in Virgo. And so when you're watching this video, it's very important that you use your rising sign from the sidereal system and not the tropical system, because if you use your tropical rising sign, you will not get the correct delineation for this video. So very important. If you need help with finding out your rising sign in sidereal, just send me a message. My Instagram and my email will be in the description box below. Send me an email and I can help you figure that out so that you can get the correct information and actually have the correct delineation for you. And number two, astrology is not a system meant to control our lives. It's simply there to make us understand certain currents of energies that are happening for us, and give us guidance as to why certain things may be happening for us at certain times. It's more so a tool that helps us reshape our perspective on the present moment instead of avoiding certain parts of the present moment. And so if you're experiencing a very difficult transit in astrology, and you know about it through astrology, it doesn't mean you're going to have to avoid this, or it doesn't mean that you need to control your life to avoid certain things that are uncomfortable. It's not there for that. It's more so there to help you ease into the present moment even more, embrace the present moment because you know it's meant to happen, and reshape your perspective as well on what you're experiencing, and maybe optimize your energy in a better way with that information. Okay, so let's get first off into eclipses. What are they? What's happening? What's the deal about them? And why are they so important? So eclipses are essentially a set of full moon and a new moon that I like to say are kind of like amplified or on steroids. And this is because an eclipse happens at a very important part of the sky, where it's actually very close or in conjunction to the north node or the south node. Now, the nodes of faith, or the nodes north node and south node, are calculation points that essentially move together through the sign, and they change constellations every 18 months. They announce which areas of lives are experiencing the most karmic growth and destined changes. It's kind of like where our soul is learning the most important lessons right now, and also purging some important things as well. So the North Node rules where we're kind of putting a lot of energy because we're learning new things that are very karmic. We're experiencing new karmic growth in this area of life. And the South Node kind of rules what we're letting go of, where we're experiencing an important purge in this area of life. And so eclipses are important because they happen in the same sign as the nodes of faith. And so they kind of trigger these very, very karmic and destined changes in our lives. And so during eclipse season, we can always feel this. There's like a much more potent energy because very important shifts and changes are happening, which kind of lay out the foundations for the next 6 months. And why are they laying out the foundation for the next six months? Because eclipses have an effect or a lifespan of about 6 months, whereas a normal new moon or full moon only has a lifespan or effect of about a month. And so with eclipses, we're really experiencing these major shifts and changes that shape us and prepare us for the cycle of the next 6 months. And that's why they have a very important connotation to them. So with astrology, we can understand which area of life is being affected by these eclipses, and thus we can understand where we're experiencing very important, destined kind of changes that are going to announce the next period of 6 months in this area of life. Now, in Sidereal, the eclipses are happening in Pisces and in Virgo because the nodes of faith have been in Pisces and Virgo since November. Now, this is a pretty special eclipse season because it's the first set of eclipses that we're going to be experiencing in Pisces and Virgo. Before that, they were in Aries and Libra for about a year and a half. And so this is the first set of eclipses that we're experiencing in different areas of lives, marking the first big trigger of shifts of energy that we're experiencing in these areas of lives. So it's kind of like a beginning of a cycle in a way with these eclipses, when we're going to start seeing the energy move into areas of lives, depending on your rising sign. And so on March 24th, we have a lunar eclipse in Virgo. So this is a full moon eclipse in the sign of Virgo in Sidereal. And on April 8th, we have the solar eclipse, which is the new moon eclipse in Pisces. And so the lunar eclipse, which is a full moon in Virgo, essentially announces a very karmic or destined ending in the area of life that Virgo rules. Now, this will shift and change depending on your rising sign, but this essentially announces some sort of karmic big ending that is kind of culminating where we're purging and we're coming to a very important completion point in the area of life that Virgo rules. And with the solar eclipse, which is the new moon eclipse happening in Pisces, we have a very karmic and important seeds that are being planted in our Pisces area of life that will flourish for the next couple months. Now, another important thing to notice or to know about eclipses is because they have such an important and long lifespan, a lot of people expect for the major, shifts and changes of eclipses to happen on the day of the eclipse. And that I found rarely happens. It's more so seeds that are planted or, little inklings of energy that kind of dictate what's going to be happening more so over the span of 6 months in a progressive way. And so that's really what the eclipses usually announce. Sometimes some of the big changes can happen around eclipse season. And that's why it's such a charged time energetically where people can make major decisions or they can make major changes in their lives or big things happen. Anyways, I've had it happen to me during eclipse season, but I've also had other eclipse seasons where they don't necessarily happen during the eclipses, but more so progressively afterwards. So all in all, it's really just very big karmic changes that are announced and preparing to happen in two different areas of lives. And these two areas of lives depend on where your rising sign is situated. And so again, know your rising sign in Sidereal, and I will have timestamps in the description box for you to directly just skip to your rising sign if you want to do that. And so I also have the charts on my screen for the eclipses where we're going to kind of go over that for each rising sign and chat about which area of life is experiencing new karmic, important, and destined growth, not only right now, but for the next 6 months. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with Aries rising. So let me just share my chart with you. Let's see. Okay, so for Aries rising, we have a lunar eclipse happening right here in Virgo on March 24th, and then a solar eclipse happening in Pisces on April 8th. And so the first set of eclipse, or the first eclipse happening for you guys, is going to be that lunar eclipse in Virgo. Now, a lunar eclipse is a full moon that has a very high energy, high significance, very karmic energy as well. And so full moons always are a time that announce some sort of culmination point or ending or clarity that kind of comes our way that helps us kind of end a certain process or end a project or whatsoever. And for you guys, this lunar eclipse is happening in your sixth house. So there is potentially going to be this very karmic, important purge or ending that involves your work, your routine, your daily routine, your health, your kind of daily habits as well. So it can be all around, your work, your coworkers, the work that you do, how you're of service, as well as your health and your your daily routine. So this may be a time where you're realizing in a very important way, maybe things that you need to restructure or things that don't necessarily work anymore when it comes to your health and your work life. Maybe this is a time where you decide to kind of purge out old habits when it comes to your health or things that you do on a mundane level. The sixth house is very all about the mundane. So this might be a time where you're having certain realizations or certain kind of like light bulb moments or important moments of awareness when it comes to your work life or your health life. And those awarenesses will help you essentially make a very important purge or end a certain process when it comes to your health and your work life. So I would say definitely pay attention to that and ask yourself if there's anything in regards to your health or your work life that would need to kind of be purged out of your life, that would need your attention. This is a great time to do something like a detox, for example, or like a diet kind of cleanse or whatsoever. This is a great time to kind of understand the habits that you're engaging that are not necessarily healthy for you, you know? And that can be anything. That can be too much coffee, that can be too much sugar, that can be too much video games. I don't know, anything that you're doing that is not necessarily of benefit to you and that is essentially ready to be kind of let go of because it's not necessarily adding to your quality of life. This can also be about work and work life. Maybe it's a time where you're realizing how you truly want to be of service to others and how you want your work life to be structured and how you want to organize that. And so this may be a time where you gain clarity on that and you're kind of getting ready for this cycle of purging and letting go and endings when it comes to that area of life. Now, 2 weeks after the lunar eclipse, we are going to have the solar eclipse, which will be happening in the sign of Pisces. Now, solar eclipse means a new moon that is very potent in energy, that has a lifespan of about 6 months, and that is very karmic and destined. So there's going to be, you know, new beginnings or new seeds that are planted. When it comes to the Pisces area of life for Aries, which are going to be taking shape for the next, I would say, 6 months. And so let me just move forward so that I do have the Aries rising here. So on April 8th, here I have April 7th, but April 8th, the new moon eclipse, so the solar eclipse, will be happening in your 12th house. And so this means new growth, new energy, new cycle that is very, very important, very karmic, starting in your 12th house area of life. Now, 12th house is the house of, it's a very spiritual house. It's the house of everything that is hidden to us, everything that is in the unconscious, subconscious. It's the house of everything that is otherworldly, that is unseen by our naked human eye, by our five senses. And so it is definitely a house that is interesting for you guys, for Aries rising. There's definitely a lot of karmic growth and change happening in the realm of everything that is hidden. So it may be a time where you're kind of asked to look at things that are usually you would not want to look at. Maybe this is a time where you're kind of building this new energy with maybe concepts like spirituality or religion or faith, or actually putting faith in something that is not seen with your five senses, with connecting with something that is not seen with your five senses. And with Pisces in the 12th house, it's likely that you do have this connection that is maybe psychic or maybe very sensitive or intuitive, but it's likely that this is experiencing a very big focus and new growth, new changes that are going to evolve and develop for the next 6 months. Now, this could definitely mean some degree of maybe awakening, spiritually speaking, or this can mean, you know, kind of like a 6 month cycle of undoing where you're kind of ending things or bringing stuff up or looking at things that are usually hidden so that you can maybe purge them and actually release them from your psyche, from your system. So this may be a cycle where you're kind of experiencing new growth and new energy when it comes to your relationship with the hidden world. So it's going to be a time where maybe you're more internal, maybe you're more isolated and going inwards and actually looking at parts of yourself that you usually don't want to see. So this is a great time to maybe, like, you know, consult a psychologist, have therapy done, or any kind of like spiritual, esoteric work done so that you may actually be able to connect with parts of yourself that are usually hidden, and become more whole through that process. And so, yeah, I would say very spiritual or spiritually inclined time for Aries rising, also potentially a time of ending and just purging, because the 12th house is the last house of the zodiac, and it rules again letting go of things, purging and endings. So again, this may be a time where you're being asked to just address certain things about yourself that are usually hidden. Now, that's not necessarily easy, and that's why I often associate the 12th house with a mental illness, because whenever a 12th house is activated heavily, it will ask us to see and to observe parts of us that we usually hide from, that we usually repress, old fears, old anxieties, old traumas. This may be a time where you're noticing that, and you're noticing it's way more active. That is very purposeful. And for you, the best thing to do for an Aries rising would be to go inwards and to tune in and to actually surrender and listen to what's happening, to expose the things that want to be exposed, to connect with your more spiritual or esoteric side, to connect with the concept of faith, maybe religion whatsoever. But yeah, so I would say spend time alone if you can, not only now during this eclipse season, but for the next oncoming 6 months, as this is a cycle of new beginnings that indicates, again, new karmic growth and a new, just new cycle when it comes to the 12th house area of life. So that is it for Aries rising. Okay, so for Taurus rising, let's go to Taurus rising. So for Taurus rising, we are having a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse in Virgo and in Pisces, announcing karmic changes, karmic growth in two different areas of lives. Now, first off, we're going to start with the lunar eclipse, which happens on the 24th of March. Now, this happens in the sign of Virgo, and a lunar eclipse is a full moon eclipse. So essentially a full moon that is really amplified in energy and somewhat karmic in energy as well, announcing very important completion of a cycle, very important endings, and very important purge that may be happening in your Virgo area of life. With a full moon, there's always a sense of illumination. The moon is at its fullest. It's offering us peak clarity, peak illumination in an area of life, which may help us to purge something that is not working, something that is not optimal in this area of life. And for Taurus rising, this full moon eclipse that we have on the 24th of March is happening in the sign of Virgo in your 5th house. And so this purging, this completion process is happening in your house of your self-expression, your hobbies, what you love to do, what you're doing because it's natural to you, because it comes from your heart. It's the house of the child, the house of the inner child. But it's all about fun and hobbies and leisure. So for Taurus rising, there may be this sense of completion or kind of like aha moment or understanding or illumination when it comes to what comes from the matters of your heart, what comes from the things that you love to do, how you express yourself, how you have fun, and how you connect to your inner child as well. So this is a full moon that could offer clarity about your self-expression and what you truly love and what you're truly passionate about and how you're expressing that to the rest of the world. So this may be a time where you're kind of coming into a completion process around that, where maybe there's a final understanding of that area of life for you. Or maybe this is a time where there's some sort of ending in regards to this house as well. Maybe it's about purging something that you used to love that maybe you don't necessarily love to do anymore. Or maybe it's about purging something that keeps you from expressing yourself, or something that doesn't really align with your self-expression anymore. But all in all, it is going to be a full moon that could offer clarity about anything that is regarding the matters of the heart. So it's all about connecting to what's fun for you and listening in to see if there's any major, awareness coming in regards to this area of life, and major projects that are coming into completion. Maybe there's finally a sense of like, okay, this is how I want to express myself. This is what I truly love and what I truly find passionate for me. But there definitely can be some sort of purging or letting go of old energies when it comes to this area of life. Now, in 2 weeks forward from that time, there is going to be a solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. And so on April 8th, there is going to be a solar eclipse in Pisces, and that will fall in your 11th house. Now, a solar eclipse is a new moon that is amplified in energy, that has a lifespan of about 6 months. And so this new moon, this solar eclipse in Pisces, kind of plants the seed for very important changes and karmic growth, destined growth when it comes to your 11th house area of life, not only now, but for the next 6 months. So this is really the announcement of a progressive karmic growth that will happen in this area of life. And the 11th house is the house of large groups of people, large communities, your friendships. It's all about also long-term wishes, long-term goals as well. But it's really all about like your large communities, large groups, and which one of these large groups or large communities that you connect with. It's also the house of friendships and your group of friends. So this may be a time where, there may be new seeds that are being planted on how you want to connect to different friends, what kind of friendships that you want to engage in your life, what kind of groups that you actually identify with, what kind of community that you kind of fit in, and what kind of group that you want to kind of involve yourself in at this time. So this may be an area of life that is significantly growing for you, where there might be new communities, new groups, new ways of connecting with large groups of people that kind of come about for you. And so this house is also the house of long-term wishes, long-term goals, and aspirations. So it is a very idealistic house. It's about looking into the future, looking into your long-term goals. So this may be a time where maybe new goals for you are coming about over the long, long haul. And this may be a time where seeds are being planted on things that you might want to achieve in the long run. So this may be a very visionary kind of next 6 months for you, where you might be thinking about that more specifically. But all in all, there's very karmic changes, growth, and shifts happening in the groups that you connect with, in the communities, and the friendships that you engage with. So any friends, any group that enters your life at this time, I would definitely pay attention to that, because it may kind of announce the changes in that area of life for the next 6 months. And so for Taurus rising, I would say, pay attention to groups, to friends, be social if you can, because the karmic growth that you're experiencing on a soul level comes through your friends for the next 6 months. It comes through your groups and through your communities. So there may be very important, I would say, alignments for you to actually come about when you do connect with large groups, when you do connect with friends. And those connections might be extremely important for you, offering you, growth and evolution that is crucial for you at this time. So do expect that for this eclipse season, and also for the next period of 6 months. So I'm wishing you the best eclipse season, and an amazing next 6 months with that energy. So for Gemini risings, let's see, let's go back to March 24th. Let's bring the time so we can have our Gemini rising peoples. All right. So for Gemini rising, so we have a set of a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse that is happening on the 24th of March and the 8th of April, announcing very karmic changes and shifts that are kind of being announced that will shape two areas of lives in a brand new way over the period of the next 6 months. And so we have a lunar eclipse happening on the 24th of March. This is a full moon that is also an eclipse, so that is very amplified in energy, that is very karmic in energy, announcing an ending of a cycle, or a great purge, or a great completion of a process that is very important, and that will carry a lot of energy within the Virgo area of life. And then we have a solar eclipse on the 8th of April in the Piscean area of life. But starting with the lunar eclipse, you're going to be experiencing this lunar eclipse here in your fourth house of home and family. So this full moon eclipse that will be happening on the 24th of March will be touching on a very personal part of your chart. There might be endings, there might be a completion process that comes about when it comes to your home and your family life. Maybe this is a time where you finally understand how you want to structure your home. Maybe this is a time where there is some sort of like a completion process that comes about the home life. Maybe a renovation is finished. Maybe a family member experiences some sort of ending or some sort of culmination point that kind of really amplifies this energy. Maybe it's just overall clarity on, again, the structure of your family and your home and what you desire. This may also be a time where there's something that could get illuminated around the family, around the home life, that essentially engages some sort of purging process or some sort of release process when it comes to how you conceive of your home and your family life. So do expect that, do expect maybe major awakenings or awareness that comes around this area of life, maybe engaging or pushing us to end something, to purge of something that is very important, or maybe finally, experiencing some sort of completion process in our home and family life, in our property area of life as well. And then in 2 weeks from that, we're going to be experiencing a solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, marking very karmic new beginnings in this area of life for the next 6 months. And so a solar eclipse is a new moon. A new moon means a new cycle and a new energy. And because this is an eclipse, this is amplified in energy and it has a lifespan of about 6 months. And so this new moon eclipse happening in Pisces again announces very karmic, very, very important cycles that are starting in this area of life, not only during eclipse season, but for the period of 6 months after that eclipse. So there are seeds that are being planted in an area of life that are going to be carrying through the very important growth happening in this area of life for the next 6 months. And for Gemini rising, this happens in the 10th house of career, of your professional life, of your reputation, of how you're perceived by the general public. It's all about your reputation and your public persona. So there are seeds that are being planted about new growth, about new evolution that is wanting to happen in your career, in your professional life, and in your reputation. And so there may be like little things that get shown to you, or ideas or a spark that kind of happens that kind of maybe nudges you towards something new when it comes to your professional life. And that will be progressively developing in a very important and karmic way over the next 6 months. You can expect, very important new karmic faded growth when it comes to your career, but also your reputation, again, how people see you, how the general public see you. And at the end of the 6 months period, you may be engaging in a process where you're realizing that you're really shaping your reputation in a new way. And maybe people see you, or you're exposing yourself to the public in a brand new way through your career. And so there's definitely very, very important growth happening in this area of life. So I would say, for Gemini rising, definitely focus on your reputation, your career, how the public perceives you. And if there's anything new that you're wanting to engage in this area of life, and if there has been something that has been brewing inside of you in regards to this area, definitely listen to the cues, because there is very, again, faded important lessons for your soul and important growth for you that is going to be transpiring in your career area of life. So just surrender to it and listen to your intuition, and listen to the cues. If there's anything new that you've been wanting to start in your career and any kind of projects around that. And so, yeah, great time for career growth for Gemini risings, and this is something that will be very emphasized for the upcoming 6 months. Okay, so for Cancer rising, so let me just advance my chart here so that I have my little Cancer risings at the forefront. So love Cancer rising. I hope you're all doing well. And so on the 24th of March, we're going to be experiencing a lunar eclipse, which is a full moon eclipse. And then on the 8th of April, we're going to be experiencing a solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse. Both lunations having very important karmic connotation to them and announcing very important karmic processes for the next 6 months. So starting with the full moon or lunar eclipse on the 24th of March. Now, full moons are always associated with a time of completion, a time of ending, a time of purge. It's also a time where we can have a heightened awareness on something because the moon is at its peak illumination. It's offering us peak clarity. So there may be new awareness that comes in, or there might just be some sort of process that finally comes to an end, that finally comes to a completion where we're finally purging of something and ending something. And for Cancer rising, this happens in your third house area of life. So there is this very karmic, important completion process and purge happening in your third house area of life, which is the house of communication, learning and speaking. It's a very learning oriented house. It's a very communication oriented house. The third house also rules your transportation methods, so your day to day travels. So this may be the house that rules cars, vehicles, anything that involves you commuting on a day to day basis in the local frame. So not a long distance traveling kind of energy, but short distance traveling is the third house area of life. So with the lunar eclipse happening in your third house area of life, there may be maybe new awareness that comes through when it comes to your mindset, your thought process, how you think about certain things, and also new information that comes in that is very relevant to you. Maybe new learning experiences that you have that do allow, for some degree of clarity or awareness. And maybe there's some sort of purging that happens in the mindset in a previous way that we were thinking of something, a previous thought pattern maybe that we were having kind of gets purged and cleansed through new awareness that comes in with that lunar eclipse. Now, what one other thing that could happen with a lunar eclipse in the third house is um endings in a completion process when it comes to transportation method. There could be some sort of purge that happens with your vehicle, your car, your transportation method, something that gets exposed, illuminated, where maybe there's some sort of ending or completion that comes about in this area of life. The third house is also the house of siblings. So there might be potentially big changes or endings that happen in these siblings' lives with a lunar eclipse in the third house, where suddenly there's an ending or a completion process that happens in your siblings' life. So that could also be possible. But all in all, it's really a house oriented about your thought process, your mindset, how you think about certain things, and the information that you're kind of taking in at this time. So it might be very big changes or an ending that kind of comes about in this area of life that is very relevant, very karmic. And that will be kind of a continuation over the next 6 months of things that are purging and things that are exiting your life when it comes to your way of thinking of things, your learning process, your vehicles, and whatsoever. And so if I advance the chart 2 weeks from now, we have our solar eclipse happening in the sign of Pisces on the 8th of April. And so solar eclipse is a new moon that has an amplified energy that really plants the seed for important karmic growth and changes happening in your Piscean area of life for the next 6 months. So there's a lot of karmic growth happening, a lot of important lessons happening for you in your Pisces area of life. And this new moon eclipse is really kind of emphasizing a fresh new beginnings where seeds are being planted for how you're going to grow in a new way in this area of life. And for Cancer rising, this actually falls in your ninth house. And the ninth house is the house of long distance traveling. It's the house of your higher set of beliefs, your higher set of perspective when it comes to how you perceive life on a larger perspective. It is a house that rules higher minded subjects such as metaphysics, religion, philosophy. It's everything that allows us to have a much more expanded, larger view or perspective of how we view our lives. So it's really that kind of knowledge, that kind of information that really allows us to kind of expand our scope and perceive things from a brand new way. So it's really the house of expansion, not only in the mental front, but also in the physical front, because again, it deals with long distance traveling. And so with this new moon eclipse happening in your ninth house, there may be new, karmic lessons, new growth that happens in the way that you perceive things from a larger perspective. Maybe you're going to travel, overseas. Maybe you're going to meet people from different cultures, or maybe you're going to be exposed to new sets of information that are maybe more philosophical, more religious, that kind of allow you to really see life from a brand new perspective that really shifts the way you view things on a higher higher front. So this is a great time for Cancer rising because the third house and the ninth house axis are very intellectually oriented. So this is a great time for Cancer rising, not only during this eclipse season, but over the span of the next 6 months to learn new things, to get into any kind of knowledge that maybe is higher minded, or any kind of knowledge, generally speaking, anything you want to learn, to really kind of dabble into this, because there definitely is some new kind of sets of information or wisdom that kind of wants to enter your life, because it's really what's going to allow you to grow the most on a soul level for the period of the next year, but especially the next 6 months. And so there's definitely some new, energy coming in, some new opportunity for travel, maybe some new opportunity for learning, some new religious scriptures that you recently just started reading, or maybe seeds are being planted about those things that you kind of want to get into, that are going to be crucial in terms of growing in a new way, expanding in a new way, the way that you view life on a higher perspective, your philosophy on life, your religious beliefs, or just your beliefs in general about life and how it can be and how it can actually work out for you. So again, a very intellectual energy for Cancer rising, very potentially like philosophical, metaphysical, spiritual kind of energy for them as they dabble into this for the next 6 months. I would definitely say for Cancer risings, pick up a book if you want to pick up a book, especially something that's more higher minded, more abstract in nature. And that will definitely support where you're karmically growing for the next 6 months when it comes to your perspective, your larger set of belief systems. And so for Leo risings, lucky Leo risings, lovely, lovely Leo risings. Hello to all my fellow Leo risings. All right, so for Leo rising, so we are having a set of two eclipses happening on the 24th of March and the 8th of April. Now, this is going to announce very karmic changes, new beginnings, and very karmic endings in two different areas of lives. So we have a full moon eclipse on the 24th of March in Virgo, announcing a very karmic ending, purge of a cycle, and a completion of a cycle. And we have a new moon eclipse happening in Pisces on the 8th of April, kind of planting seeds for new beginnings that are very karmic and that are going to announce very important growth happening in our Piscean area of life for the next 6 months. And so starting with the full moon happening in the sign of Virgo. So we're going to have the full moon eclipse, or the lunar eclipse, in Virgo on the 24th of March. Again, full moons are always a time of endings. It's always aligns with a completion of a process, something that kind of gets illuminated to us so that we can purge something old, purge something that no longer belongs. So the moon is at its fullest, it's at its brightest, so it's offering us peak clarity, peak illumination. So, there's always space for new awareness, or kind of like a completion process that happens during a full moon. So with Leo rising, this lunar eclipse is actually going to be happening in your second house of finances, of your personal income, how you deal with your personal resources, how you deal with your finances, and your house of values as well, your personal values. And so for Leo risings, this may be a time where there's some sort of clarity that comes about, or some sort of completion process that comes about when it comes to your finances and how you deal with your financial life. So this may be a time where maybe you're purging of old ways of dealing with finances, of old maybe mindsets around finances, of old ways of managing your resources. And this may be a time where you're really embracing a new way to deal with this area of life through this purge of old ways. This may be a time where there's some sort of clarity that comes in about your finances that allows you to, kind of end something old in regards to your financial life and the way that you deal with money and your resources, generally speaking. So definitely, pay attention to what may come up around your finances. There might be some new piece that comes in that really kind of illuminates something very important, where, okay, like now you have this new awareness. Now you're actually able to maybe end some sort of a cycle when it comes to your finances. So there's going to be a purge and definitely some new awareness coming in. So definitely pay attention to that. And with the second house, it's also the house of our physical belongings or material wealth. So this may be a great time for Leo risings to actually purge of your physical belongings, like actually engage in some healthy form of spring cleaning, your material belongings, they take up a lot of energy. And if some of those old items are not purged that don't necessarily belong to who you are right now, to your energy right now, they may be stagnating you in ways that you can't necessarily understand. They may be stagnating you in ways that, you're not able to be necessarily clear and creative, because these things take up space, not just physically, but in our psyche, in our energy as well. So this may be a time where you're being asked to, you know, clean up the old things that you've been holding on to that just don't make sense to stay in your physical environment anymore, and give it to someone who would use it probably better. And so, old clothes, old anything, anything that you haven't used for a long time, this may be a great time to purge out of that as well. And so this is kind of what's happening for the full moon eclipse happening on the 24th of March. And then 2 weeks later, we have the solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse happening in your eighth house area of life in Pisces. So a solar eclipse announces seeds that are being planted for new beginnings that are very karmic, that are very potent, that are gonna basically evolve progressively over the period of the next 6 months. So for Leo risings, there is some sort of new karmic shift, new karmic beginning that kind of wants to, get triggered or get engaged in the eighth house area of life. And so we may notice, little sparks or little seeds that are being planted around those new ideas in regards to this house. And we're going to notice that in the next 6 months, there's going to be very important destined and karmic growth in this area of life. Now, what is the eighth house area of life? It's the house of death and rebirth. It's the house of transformation. It's the house of our shadows, what we keep hidden because we don't necessarily want to see. So it's really the house of exposing what's hidden so that we may engage in some sort of transformative process. It's a house that is very mystical in nature. It rules what's taboo, what we don't necessarily like to see as a society. So it rules intimacy, sexuality, but it also rules like the occult world and, astrology and mysticism and everything that is, a little bit, again, taboo, hidden. And so for Leo risings, this may be a time during the solar eclipse and also during the next 6 month period where there is a new way of approaching this more taboo side to life. Maybe there's an inclination to, explore the taboo, explore the hidden, and understand this side of us in a better way. So this may be a time where you want to dive into, occult practices or astrology or mysticism or anything like that. Or because the eighth house is the house of our shadows and what we hide from, this may be a time where you engage in, I would call it, traditionally shadow work, where you're kind of taking the commitment to look at certain things about yourself that you usually repress, that you embrace and kind of address things that are, maybe old traumas, old fears, old anxieties. These things may come up progressively over the next 6 month period of time, allowing you to address those deep-seated psychological hidden issues, allowing you to again engage in some sort of transformative process in your psyche and in your life externally as well through that process. The eighth house is also the house of death and rebirth. Maybe a time where you explore the topic of depth a little bit more profoundly and try to understand it and try to maybe shift your own idea around that as well. Maybe the energy of death is necessarily or is more present in your life, with the North Node in your eighth house and with the solar eclipse happening in your eighth house, there is new karmic growth that involves death. So maybe the topic of death is more active in the sense that you're asked to be purged of things a little bit more often. You're asked to let go of things that are really not necessary for you in your life anymore. And so you're going to have this kind of progressive energy towards, ending things in your lives that need to be ended. And finally, the eighth house rules other people's resources and other people's money. So we're talking about banks, we're talking about loans, debt as well, maybe our partners. So this may be a time where new energies come in when it comes to the resources that you share with other people, and you're experiencing a lot of really karmic growth when it comes to that concept. So maybe you merge or you move in with a partner and now you have access to a lot more resources, or maybe, you receive some sort of inheritance and then you have access to a lot more external resources. So maybe you're growing a lot in that sense, or maybe it's you dealing with some sort of debt or dealing with some sort of external resources where you have to kind of engage with that and change this, or leave this in some kind of way. So this may also be at the forefront of this eclipse season, but also the next 6 months period of life. So I would say for Leo risings, go deep. You know what I mean? Like, definitely don't be afraid to engage in any kind of shadow work and engage in any kind of work that allows you to cleanse old part of yourself, old parts of your psyche that don't necessarily have a place to stay anymore. And so that is it for my Leo risings. So for Virgo risings, this is a really important eclipse season for Virgo risings, actually. And so we have a set of two eclipses, basically one on the 24th of March and one on the 8th of April, that will announce very karmic shifts and changes in two different areas of lives. We have a full moon eclipse in Virgo on the 24th of March, basically announcing very karmic and important endings and a purge of an area of life, really announcing some sort of completion process when it comes to an area of life. And then we have a solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse, announcing a very karmic new beginning that will basically plant new seeds of growth in an area of life for the next 6 months. So starting with a lunar eclipse on the 24th of March. So we have a lunar eclipse full moon in Virgo, which means some sort of illumination coming in your first house area of life, some sort of a completion process coming into your Virgo area of life, which is your first house. And so with this lunar eclipse happening in your first house, what is the first house? It is the house of yourself, your identity, how you portray yourself to the rest of the world, how the rest of the world sees you. It's the house of your physical appearance as well, your physical body. Again, how you portray yourself to the rest of the world. And so, with a lunar eclipse in the first house, there's some sort of illumination process coming in when it comes to your identity, what you want to focus on, how you want the rest of the world to see you, maybe your physical appearance and your physical body as well. There's a lot happening for Virgo that is possibly helping them really define who they are and really come into some sort of very important completion process when it comes to, again, defining who they are and how they want the rest of the world to see them. So there's many different probably karmic events happening that are allowing Virgo risings to understand, again, where they're going, who they are, and how they want others to see that. For Virgo risings, this may also be a time of considerable health activity. I mean, also that we have had Saturn in your sixth house for the last year or so, asking you to build more structure and more boundaries in your health area of life. But, the first house is also your physical body and your physical self. So this may be a time where there's some sort of completion process when it comes to how you treat your body, how you, structure your routine with your body. And so this may be a time of purging when it comes to your body and how you treat it and how you kind of make it appear to the rest of the world. So yeah, with the lunar eclipse of the 24th of March, definitely some sort of completion or ending and clarity coming through when it comes to your identity and how you really portray yourself to the rest of the world. So this is definitely a huge eclipse for Virgos because this is touching probably the most personal area of life, which is the area of the self. So there's going to be a lot happening that's going to give a lot of clarity for Virgo risings. Extremely karmic time, a very, very important time for Virgo risings, actually, where a lot of things are coming into completions, things that are essential when it comes to your general path where you're going and your identity. And then 2 weeks later, on the 8th of April, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Pisces, basically marking a very calming, it faded new beginnings when it comes to this Piscean area of life that's going to plant the seeds of new growth, not only during this eclipse season, but for the next 6 months, because this lunar eclipse or this solar eclipse has a lifespan of 6 months. It really marks this new cycle of the next 6 months. And for Virgo rising, this solar eclipse happens in your seventh house area of life. The seventh house is the house of partnerships, your one-to-one partners, personal one-to-one partnerships, whether that is a romantic partner, whether that is a best friend, a close friend. It is also the house of your business partnerships as well. So business partners or any partnership that has a contractual agreement to them. So that can be a therapist, that can be a lawyer, whatsoever. But for Virgo risings, there is very new karmic beginnings and shifts happening in your partnership area of life. Maybe people coming your way that are very fated, very destined, and that are going to be essential for you to grow this area of life, to grow your partnership area of life in an exponential way over the next 6 months, but especially over the next year, with the nodes staying in Pisces for the next year. And so there is new karmic growth, new karmic evolution, lessons coming through your one-to-one partnerships, and just overall really destined important growth happening in your partnerships and also through your partnerships. That is kind of starting on that eclipse on the 8th of April, but it is going to progressively evolve over the next 6 months. So definitely pay attention to the people that are in your life right now, the people that are entering your life, and notice, the changes that will come about this area of life. And I have to say, get ready for a 6 month period of, major growth and exploring partnerships in a brand new way. Maybe meeting people that are very different that really teach you a lot of important and karmic lessons. So for Virgo risings, it's really the spotlight is put around your relationships and the people that are gonna come into your life and really bring you a major destined lessons and energies that are going to help you reshape yourself and how you see yourself and how you express yourself to the rest of the world. So major time for Virgo risings, probably the sign that is affected the most profoundly by this eclipse season specifically, and all the eclipse season for the next year, actually. Okay, so for Libra risings, so for Libra rising, so we have a set of two eclipses happening on the 24th of March and on the 8th of April 2024, where there's going to be a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is happening in Virgo on the 24th of March, announcing a very karmic ending and purging of an area of life, really announcing some sort of completion process and ending process happening in this area of life. And then on the 8th of April, a solar eclipse, which is a new moon that announces a very karmic new beginning, that kind of involves a brand new cycle when it comes to your Piscean area of life for the next 6 months. And so, starting with the lunar eclipse on the 24th of March, we have a new, full moon lunar eclipse happening in Virgo. So, full moons are always associated with some sort of completion process and some sort of awareness coming at the forefront of our experience, allowing us to kind of purge an old energy and allowing us to kind of, again, end a certain process in this area of life. And so for Libra rising, this completion process, this very karmic purge, is happening in your 12th house area of life. And so the 12th house is the house of everything that is hidden. It is the house of everything that is hidden in our subconscious, everything that we cannot see or perceive with our five senses. It's a very mystical oriented house, very much about mysticism and spirituality and our connection to the unseen world. And so for Libra rising, there might be this sense of ending or completion when it comes to your relationship with the unseen, when it comes to your relationship with the parts of yourself that are hidden, when it comes to your relationship with the nature, the hidden nature of life, so your spirituality, your faith, your mysticism, there might be this, and the 12th house is that the last house of the zodiac, so it's really the house of ending. So there might generally speaking, be this very important process of ending happening, but especially this process of completion when it comes to maybe things that were kind of laying in your subconscious, things that were kind of repressed, that you've been able to bring up to the surface and deal with them and kind of purge them adequately. So with the full moon in Virgo, with the lunar eclipse, it may be a time where you're very sensitive. Your ability to tune in to energies that are very subtle and hidden is very emphasized. as you're kind of, you have more of the ability to see the hidden realm, to perceive the hidden realm, and to kind of maybe bring up certain parts of yourself that are usually hidden and repressed so that you can kind of engage with that side of you and maybe allow yourself to purge old energies in your subconscious that do not belong anymore. So this may be a time where, again, there's this kind of ending process when it comes to your relationship with what's hidden, with the hidden, with your spirituality, with your mysticism, with the parts of your psyche that are repressed, that are unconscious. So this may all be kind of brought up to the surface. This may be a time where you're finally gaining some degree of important clarity in regards to that, and you're finally purging some very important energies in regards to this area of life as well. And so, yeah, I would say definitely more sensitive, mysticism, internal time for Libra rising. This may be a full moon that's very internal, very solitary, where you're going inwards and you're asked again to kind of maybe bring some sort of awareness or illumination or completion process to something in yourself that is hidden. So definitely be, more aware of these subtle energies within, be ready to be more inwards, to be more internal with this full moon. And this is a very, very karmic purge that is happening in this area of life. And then 2 weeks later, on the 8th of April, we have a solar eclipse in the let's see. Oh, that's days. Let's go back and let's go weeks, 2 weeks from now. So on the 8th of April, we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, basically marking new seeds that are being planted that kind of announce new karmic faded energies and beginnings that are happening in your sixth house area of life. And so the sixth house is the area of health, your daily routine, your mundane life, your diet, your work life as well, how you are of service to others, how you serve others. And so with the new moon eclipse happening on the 8th of April, this is a time where, again, seeds are being planted on how you're going to grow in new and faded ways in this area of life. There's definitely going to be major soul lessons coming through your health, through your body, through the mundane life, and through your work life. So maybe new karmic shifts in your work and in your health life, or maybe just very big karmic lessons coming through this area of life for the period of 6 months. So, if there are any seeds that you notice, any little light bulb moments around your health, around how you're of service, how you work, your work environment, definitely pay attention to that because it definitely marks the foundation for, again, the very karmic shifts and changes that are going to be happening in this area of life for the next 6 months. So definitely major shifts for Libra risings in their work life or in how they're serving others and their health life as well. And again, just seeds are being planted during this eclipse time that are going to progressively evolve and grow in a very karmic way over the next 6 months. So definitely pay attention to that. Get ready for a 6 months time where you may be exploring your health and being of service in a brand new way, in a very faded and karmic way, but definitely in ways that you haven't explored before or known before. So this is, I would say, very mundane energy, but very beautiful, especially because we're talking about being of service to others and again to the body, the health, and our well-being. So there is new ways that you're going to approach this area of life. It's going to be very karmic and very essential for the lessons that you're meant to learn right now. So I wish you an amazing eclipse season and an amazing 6-month period. So for Scorpio risings, let me just back up the chart back to the 24th of March and let me advance the chart to have my Scorpio rising highlighted right here. Okay, so for Scorpio risings, we have a set of a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse happening on the 24th of March and on the 8th of April, announcing very karmic shifts and changes when it comes to two different areas of lives. And so we're going to kind of get into these areas of lives and how you're going to be affected by these eclipses. And so we first off have a lunar eclipse on the 24th of March happening in Virgo right here. A lunar eclipse is essentially a full moon that is really amplified in energy, that is very karmic, very faded. And so this full moon energy happens in Virgo in your 11th house, which means there's going to be some sort of completion process, some sort of purge when it comes to your friendship area of life, your area of life that deals with the groups that you connect with, your community, your large groups of people. And so full moons always deal with some sort of, again, completion process, something coming into an end. And full moons always deal with some sort of purge as well. Again, an ending, a purge, a completion process, something finally kind of like coming full circle. Full moons are also usually a time of illumination and gaining clarity because the moon is shining at its brightest and it's offering us peak clarity, peak illumination. And so it's usually a time, during full moons where we can get some sort of clarity, some sort of illumination around an area of life that then helps us to kind of finish a process or kind of allow an area of life to really complete some sort of cycle and again engage in some sort of endings. But because this is a new lunar eclipse, which is a full moon that is amplified in energy, this is something that's very karmic, very important, and very relevant. And so again, for Scorpio risings, this is happening in your 11th house. So there is definitely some sort of ending and completion process when it comes to your area of friendships and large groups. Maybe it's a time where you're kind of understanding what kind of groups you want to align yourself to. What kind of communities do you belong to? Who are your friends? Who are the people that you want to interact with? This is something where you finally may have like some sort of final clarity around, which kind of helps you purge something old, which kind of helps you engage in some sort of ending or culmination process in this area of life. So I would say definitely pay attention to any information that comes about or any clarity internally that comes about groups and friends and the kind of, again, the communities that you want to hang around with and that you want to affiliate yourself with. So again, this is a time where you're getting clarity around that. And this is a time where you're really purging and ending something in regards to this area of life. Now, the 11th house also rules with our long-term goals and long-term wishes and aspirations. So this may be a time where you're gaining some sort of clarity, maybe around the long-term goals that you want to engage with, maybe the long-term like aspirations that you're realizing that you really have, and the things that you really realize you want to go towards in the longer sense. And so this may be a time where you're kind of finally realizing that, and this kind of brings some sort of completion process towards that. But generally speaking, with a full moon eclipse in the 11th house of friendships, we can expect, some sort of very relevant, karmic, important ending when it comes to the way that you see your groups or the groups that you want to engage with or your friendship life. And so 2 weeks later, there is a solar eclipse happening in Pisces, and that is a new moon that is really amplified in energy. So new moons always mark a new cycle, a new beginning. And when it's an eclipse, it's a new beginning that is really amplified in energy, that has a lifespan of about 6 months, and that is very destined and very karmic. And so with the solar eclipse happening in Pisces on the 8th of April, this is actually happening in your fifth house area of life, which is the area of your hobbies, of what you love to do for fun. It's the house of fun, pleasure. Again, things that we just find so natural to do because they come from the heart. It's also the house of dating and kind of like love affairs, and it's the house of children and your inner child as well. So for Scorpio risings, this may be a time where this can be a time that's very karmic regarding children. For example, if you have children, this can be a time where your children go through very major changes or new beginnings, I would say, in their lives, where this kind of process of new beginnings spans out over the next 6 months. But if you don't have children, this could be a time where you're realizing, maybe your passions and your hobbies, and there's new beginnings when it comes to what you love to do and what you're realizing that you're truly passionate about and what you're realizing that you like to do because it's so natural. And so this can really be a time to kind of go back to this energy of inner child and go back to this energy of fun and pleasure and kind of play around with this energy, because there's definitely growth happening in this area of life where you're realizing maybe new hobbies or new passions that you have and reconnecting to that in a new way. And that's really, really important for the lessons that you're currently experiencing as a soul for the next 6 months. And so again, major karmic growth when it comes to how you express yourself, because the fifth house is also your self-expression. Again, fun, hobbies, but your self-expression especially. So this is a time where there are seeds that are being planted for new growth that is happening when it comes to how you express yourself, the things that you love, your passions, things that you're natural at, things that you enjoy doing because they're just so fun to do. And so there's going to be new energy coming into this area of life, and definitely very, very, very karmic and important growth when it comes to this area of life over the next 6 months. So I would say for Scorpio risings, explore matters of the heart, explore how you want to express yourself, what you love to do and how you want to show that to the rest of the world as something that you're able to create for yourself. Think about your inner child and who you were as a child. What did your inner child self love to do? What did you love to do when you were a child that was so natural and so easy because you loved it so much? So that's really what's at the forefront for Scorpio risings. They're exploring that. They're exploring matters of the heart, what's fun, what's pleasurable. And there's definitely seeds that are being planted that are going to show you, again, where that growth, that very karmic, destined growth is going to take you in this area of life for the next 6 months. And so I hope you have a great eclipse season and a great next 6 months. And so next we have Sagittarius risings. So Sagittarius risings, what is coming up for you guys for eclipse season? Let me just pull up my chart here. All right. So we have two sets or two eclipses happening on the 24th of March and on the 8th of April. So we have a lunar eclipse happening in Virgo on the 24th of March and a solar eclipse happening in Pisces on the 8th of March, basically marking karmic shifts, karmic endings, and new beginnings in two areas of lives for the next period of 6 months. And so first off, starting with the lunar eclipse in Virgo, we essentially have a full moon eclipse in the sign of Virgo, announcing karmic endings, karmic purging happening in a certain area of life. And so with full moons, we always think of some sort of a completion process, some sort of something coming into an end, something coming full circle, where we're finally kind of ending a cycle in a certain area of life. There's also maybe sometimes some sort of purging involved with a full moon, where again, the ending allows us to really purge out an old energy. And with a full moon, we always have some sort of like illumination process or something that really gets illuminated in our awareness, because the moon is shining at its brightest and it's offering us peak clarity and peak illumination in an area of life. So there may be new awareness coming through, new kind of insights coming through that allows us to purge something old, that allows us to kind of come full circle and end something and end a cycle in our lives. And so for Sagittarius rising, this full moon eclipse, which is a very important and karmic ending of a cycle, happens in your 10th house of career. So there can be the feeling of this completion process happening in your career life, in your reputation, how you portray yourself to the rest of the world, to the public space. There can finally be like, okay, like I'm finally completed in how I'm showing up to the public and where my career is going and what my career is. So they can really be the sense of like finally having finished this cycle of maybe figuring out the career space or figuring out how you want the public to see you. And now it's like, yeah, this is finally coming to an end. It's very karmic completion process, which may involve potentially some purging, maybe involve some last endings of an old cycle when it comes to your career and how you perceive your career and your reputation. And there might be more awareness or clarity that comes through when it comes to your career path and your reputation. But all in all, there definitely is like this full circle moment of finally feeling that there is some sort of completion process and ending when it comes to the career space. So definitely, pay attention to any awareness that might come in. Pay attention to if there's anything that wants to get purged in regards to the career, the reputation whatsoever. But that's kind of generally what's in the cards for Sag rising with the lunar eclipse. And then 2 weeks later, we have the solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, marking very karmic new beginnings, very karmic shifts, and seeds that are being planted for, again, the very important growth that is going to happen in this area of life for the next 6 months. And so, with the solar eclipse happening in Pisces for Sag rising, this happens in your fourth house of home and family. This basically marks a time where seeds are being planted for the new karmic growth that is wanting to happen in your home and family space. So maybe there's new ideas coming in, or just new kind of like light bulb moments in regards to this area of life that are going to basically kickstart this process where there's going to be, again, very karmic, faded, new growth happening in your home life and in your family life, because of the North Node being in Pisces. So the North Node always kind of announces new growth, new experiences that really grow us as a soul, that allow us to learn new sets of lessons in this area of life. And for Sag rising, this is all about home and family. So maybe there's a new home situation coming in. Maybe there's a new, I don't know, a new roommate, a new renovation. Maybe there's a new member of a family. Maybe there's some sort of new shift in the family life. There's definitely some new, fresh, like unseen before karmic growth when it comes to family and home. There's going to be seeds that are going to be planted in regards to that, probably in the beginning of April. But overall, this process is probably going to be very progressive, and happening for the next 6 months. But definitely pay attention to that. If there's new inclinations, new energies coming in, new ideas, this is going to really give you insight on how you're going to be growing exponentially and in new ways in your home and in your family life over the next 6 months. So I'm wishing you an amazing eclipse season, and I'm wishing you a great next 6 months with all the new karmic growth happening in your family life and in your home life. Okay, so for Capricorn risings, let me just pull back my chart, pull my chart to the Capricorn rising chart. All right. So for Capricorn rising, so we have a set of two eclipses happening, a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse happening in the sign of Pisces and Virgo on the 24th of March and on the 8th of April, announcing very karmic new beginnings and endings happening in two areas of lives. So we're going to be touching on both of the eclipses and where they're going to be hitting in your chart for Capricorn rising. So first of all, we have a lunar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, on the 24th of March, announcing very karmic completion process, ending, and purge happening in your Virgo area of life. So a lunar eclipse is a full moon that's basically on steroid, very amplified in energy, and full moons are always associated with some sort of ending or culmination process, something coming into an end, a full circle moment where we can finally maybe let go of something old or finally end something that has been brewing or culminating for a little while. And so full moons are always associated again with endings, sometimes with some degree of purging and letting go of something. And full moons are always associated with some degree of awareness or new illumination coming in, because the moon is at its brightest. It's offering us peak clarity, peak illumination, allowing us to have new insight and new awareness in regards to an area of life that maybe would help us again, end something or purge something in this area of life as well. So with the full moon eclipse happening in Virgo, this is actually hitting your ninth house for Capricorn rising. So there is a completion process coming through in the ninth house area of life. And the ninth house rule your higher set of belief systems, your general philosophy, and again, higher set of perspective when it comes to life in general. So it's a very abstract house. It rules topics such as religion, philosophy, higher sets of knowledge, like metaphysics and spirituality. It rules higher minded studies. So, again, studies that are more abstract in nature. It rules long distance traveling as well, and your relationship to different cultures and things that are, outside of you. But all in all, it's really the house that rules your larger perspective of your life and your larger set of belief systems. And that's why it involves things such as philosophy and religion, because these are two things that heavily allow us to shape our larger sense of perspective and belief when it comes to life. So for Capricorn risings, this may be a time where there's finally some degree of completion when it comes to the way that you believe of certain things about life, when it comes to your personal philosophy of life, when it comes to your higher understanding of life, generally speaking, or your higher set of belief systems around certain things in your life and what's possible. So this may be a time where you finally feel like, yeah, I understand my philosophy around that thing, or I understand my philosophy of life, and I understand maybe my religious beliefs a lot better, or just your beliefs, generally speaking. There's finally an ending coming, like a full circle moment where you feel like you're very solid and kind of like finally finish this process of building your set of belief systems. Maybe this because the ninth house also rules higher sets of studies and like university and college. So for someone with a Capricorn rising, this may be a time where they're finishing some sort of course. Maybe they've been engaged in some sort of more like higher minded course, like a philosophy course, or any kind of course, higher set of study. And maybe that's a time where they're finally finishing this study or this learning process, and they finally feel like they've amalgamated that knowledge in a very good way. Or this may be a time where there's a final purge or cleansing when it comes to old belief systems and old higher ways of perceiving things that are no longer meant to stay anymore. But all in all, yeah, there's definitely this process of completion, purging, endings when it comes to your process with your beliefs and your learning as well. And there's also maybe some illumination, some clarity coming into your philosophies, your higher sets of belief systems, and whatsoever. And so with the new moon eclipse, so with the solar eclipse happening 2 weeks away, or 2 weeks from that date, on the 8th of April, we're going to have a solar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, marking seeds that are being planted for new and karmic beginnings that are going to be happening in this area of life over the span of the next 6 months, because eclipses do announce, the energies that are going to be evolving for the span of the next 6 months. And so, with the solar eclipse happening in the sign of Pisces, this falls in your third house. This means that, again, there are seeds that are being planted, things that are happening, which involve, again, this new growth, this new destined activity that is going to be happening in your third house area of life for the next 6 months. Now, the third house area of life is the house of learning, communication, your thought process, your mindset. It's also the house that rules your short distance traveling, vehicles, like how you commute in your day-to-day life. Your siblings as well is a third house related energy. And so, with the solar eclipse happening in Pisces, this marks a new beginning, a fresh new energy, and that kind of is starting in your third house area of life. So, you may notice that for the period of the next 6 months, there is a lot of karmic growth and shifts, and a lot of karmic lessons that comes through your third house area of life as well. This may be a time where, for the next 6 months, you're going to be involved in some sort of new learning process where you're going to be learning new information and new knowledge. This may be a time where you may be learning to communicate in a brand new way. This may be a time where you're kind of reframing your mindset and your thought process in a brand new way. Or this may be a time where you engage in short distance traveling that ends up being very, very karmic and allows you to learn a lot of important lessons for the period of the next 6 months. But overall, there's definitely new growth happening in your third house area of life, and that's a very intellectually oriented house. So I would say for Capricorn rising, if you've wanted to learn something for a long time, if you've wanted to get your hands in some kind of knowledge, this may be a time where it's very congruent for you to do that. It's very natural. It's a time where you're very fertile to new information and to new like ways of perceiving things on the mental front. So definitely major karmic soul lessons and growth coming through your communication, coming through the information that you're being exposed to. Your internal information base is growing in an exponential and new way. You're learning new things, you're communicating in new ways with new people, and you may be visiting new areas in your local, more of your local environment that end up being very relevant for you, that end up being very karmic and very destined for you as well. So definitely be open to that, be open to learn new things, be open to maybe travel, move around a little bit more, because you'd be surprised that these things are probably going to be very important for your current development and for your karmic growth over the next 6 months. So I hope you have a great eclipse season, and I hope you have a great next 6 months. So for Aquarius rising, so Aquarius risings, this is how the upcoming eclipses will be affecting you and your chart. So we have a set of two eclipses, one lunar eclipse and one solar eclipse happening on the 24th of March and on the 8th of April, basically engaging in very karmic endings and new beginnings that are going to be happening in two different areas of life. So we're going to be touching on both of these and where they're hitting your chart specifically. And so we have a lunar eclipse happening on the 24th of March. This basically means a full moon that's kind of like on steroids, a very karmic full moon that is happening in Virgo. Full moons are always associated with some sort of ending process, some sort of culmination process. There's some sort of like process coming into a full circle ending. Maybe there's some sort of purging usually that's involved with a full moon too. And usually with full moons, there's always potentially some sort of new awareness or new clarity coming through because the moon is shining at its brightest, offering us peak clarity, peak illumination on an area of life. And this new awareness that we may gain in this area of life may allow us to, again, finish a cycle, kind of engage in some sort of ending, some sort of completion process that's going to be happening in this area of life. So, for Aquarius rising, the full moon lunar eclipse is happening in your eighth house. And so there's definitely this ending culmination process happening in this area of life, and this new awareness potentially coming in as well. And so, what is the eighth house? The eighth house is the house of death and rebirth. It's the house of the shadow, everything that's hidden, everything that's repressed that we can't necessarily see or that we don't want to see. The eighth house is the house of things that are taboo, things that we don't want to address. It rules sexuality, intimacy, the occult world, like astrology, mysticism, and all of that, things that are more hidden from society. And then the eighth house also rules other people's resources, other people's money, the banks, the loans, the inheritance, whatsoever. But, all in all, the eighth house really rules the house of death and transformation, and it asks us to expose what is hidden in the shadow so that we may engage in some sort of death process with it and transform through that process. And so, with the full moon happening in the eighth house for Aquarius rising, there's definitely some sort of completion process coming into when it comes to the death and rebirth area of life and the shadow realm. So, there might be a sense that we finally completed some sort of healing that was very difficult, probably, allowed, asked us to look at a lot of our more shadow or repressed parts of our psyche or parts of our lives. Maybe there's been a lot of endings in the life, a lot of death in the life, and we finally feel like this process is kind of coming into an end. Like we finally completed this process of engaging in addressing our shadows, in healing our shadows, healing the parts of ourselves that are repressed and that are hidden. And so now there's finally, again, this process that we've done that work, we've done this cycle, and we're kind of finishing the last little bits of it potentially. We've really allowed certain parts of our psyche in our lives to die as they were supposed to die, and now we're really feeling that we've done, the necessary work. And so there's definitely this feeling of very karmic ending when it comes to, again, our the parts of ourselves that are hidden, our shadow. This may be a time where there is some degree of maybe some piece of awareness that comes through when it comes to, our shadow and the parts of ourselves that we don't see. And this may help us to, complete that process even more. So definitely pay attention to anything that might come up. There might be, pieces of lingering energies in the shadow that gets exposed psychologically and whatsoever. And we're asked to see that one last time. And the eighth house also rules other people's resources. So there may also be this completion process when it comes to the way that we deal with other people's resources. So a bank, a debt, loans, whatsoever. Maybe we finally finished paying off some debt. Maybe we finally finished off, some sort of agreement that we have with someone else and their resources and whatsoever. So this may also be a time where we're finally ending something in regards to that that is very karmic, that is very relevant and potent in energy. And so 2 weeks later, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Pisces, basically marking a very important karmic new beginning in the Piscean area of life. And right now, I just have to pull back, because we got to go back to Aquarius rising. Perfect. So with the solar eclipse happening in Pisces on the 8th of April. Again, this is a new moon eclipse. New moons are always associated with new energy and a new cycle. And because it's an eclipse, this new energy is very potent, it's very karmic, and it also will span out for the period of the next 6 months. So this solar eclipse happening in Pisces really marks, again, seeds that are being planted for the very potent karmic shifts and growth that are going to be happening in our Piscean area of life for the next 6 months. And for Aquarius rising, this happens in the second house area of life, which is the house of finances, the house of your personal income, the house of your material wealth, the house of your personal like resources and how you deal with your resources. So for Aquarius rising, this is a time where, again, there might be seeds of new beginnings that are planted that are very karmic, very important in your financial life, in your resources, and your material wealth. And this is really going to span out over the period of 6 months where there's going to be very new growth, new karmic energy, new karmic lessons coming in that involves your financial world, that involves your financial assets, your material wealth. So there's definitely going to be new growth in your financial life. And there's going to be a lot of lessons for you to learn through your finances and through the way that you deal with your income and your material resources. That's going to happen over the next 6 months. And this solar eclipse kind of activates this for the first time and kind of plants those seeds for the upcoming 6 months. And so there's definitely going to be new, very relevant, like new, never before seen growth, or just new energy generally coming in regards to, again, how you deal with your financial world. And this is going to happen over the next 6 months and over the next year, technically. But you could definitely, notice that, and definitely will see that over the next 6 months. So I would say for Aquarius rising, definitely start to make plans financially, start to understand your goals financially, where maybe there's a new income source that's going to come your way with this solar eclipse over the next 6 months. And then this is going to allow you to move through your financial world, move through your resources in a brand new way. So definitely stay open to that. Stay open to new financial opportunities, stay open to new ideas maybe that you have around your financial world, and your finances, generally speaking. And pay attention, because there's definitely going to be new opportunities for you to grow and evolve in new ways in this area of life over the next 6 months. So have a great eclipse season. Have a great next 6 months, and best of luck with that. So Pisces rising, last but not least, this is how the eclipses will be affecting you for the upcoming 6 months. So let me just pull the chart to Pisces rising. So we're going to have a set of a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse happening on the 24th of March and the 8th of April, which are going to announce karmic endings and karmic new beginnings in two areas of lives for the next 6 months. And so we're going to look at where these are happening in your chart and kind of how this is going to affect you specifically. So first of all, we have a lunar eclipse happening on the 24th of March. And this is happening in the sign of Virgo. A lunar eclipse is a full moon that is really amplified in energy, that is very karmic in energy, that is very, very, very relevant. And so full moons are always associated with some sort of completion process, some sort of an ending, something finally coming like full circle. And again, finally ending some sort of cycle in an area of life. Full moons can sometimes be associated with a purge or something really exiting our lives. And full moons are always, or can be associated with, gaining some degree of new awareness or insight, because the moon is at its brightest. It's offering us peak clarity, peak insight into some area of life. And this insight may allow us to purge and really let go of something specifically in this area of life. So for Pisces risings, with the lunar eclipse happening in Virgo on the 24th of March, you're actually going to be experiencing this in your seventh house of your one-to-one partnerships, of your one-to-one friendships or romantic relationships. So the seventh house is the house of marriage, but it's really the house of our one-to-one dealings that are more personal. So we're talking about a close friend, we're talking about our partner, and this can also be a business partnership as well. or any partnership that is based on a contract. So a lawyer, any kind of service whatsoever. And so for Pisces rising, there's definitely this sense of completion coming through our relationship life, feeling like we finally figured out some sort of process or some sort of energy around our partners, feeling like we finally come full circle in our relationship life. Maybe we finally figured out how to deal with a certain situation with a partner, how to, arrange or structure certain of our relationships. And maybe this is really kind of coming into a final completion process. This may be a time where there's potentially an ending or purge when it comes to a relationship with an eclipse. Lunar eclipse in the seventh house. This definitely could be like a final purge when it comes to your close relationships, because you're definitely maybe gaining some sort of clarity or insight on the kind of relationship you want to, engage with, on the kind of people that you want to have as your one-to-one personal dealings. So maybe this is a time where you're again gaining clarity on that, and kind of finally maybe putting some sort of ending in a relationship. And this may not necessarily mean ending a relationship per se, but may mean an ending within a relationship. So this may mean like, not engaging in a certain pattern anymore with your partner, or, ending an old cycle with a partner and moving into a new chapter together. So this may not necessarily mean an ending of a relationship, but it may also mean an ending of something within a relationship, and it may also be more of an internal process as well, where you're finally like kind of understanding how you want to approach your relationships, and how you want to approach your one-to-one dealings, and how that is structured for you, how that looks like for you. So this may also be something more internal as well, which allows you to understand your relationship nature, what you want and what you need. But there's definitely potentially an ending, a purge, and new awareness coming through in this area of life. And so 2 weeks later, there is going to be a solar eclipse, which is a new moon eclipse happening in Pisces, marking karmic and fated new beginnings in an area of life that is going to be progressively evolving for the next period of 6 months. Now, a new moon is it basically marks a new beginning. It is seeds that are being planted for a new cycle. And when it's an eclipse, or when it's a solar eclipse new moon, it basically is really amplified in energy and has a lifespan of 6 months instead of just 1 month, meaning that there's going to be major new karmic energy, new beginnings that are really going to span out over the next period of 6 months. So it's very fated, very, very karmic, very potent new growth that is coming through in our Piscean area of life for the period of the next 6 months. And for Pisces risings, I would say that this is a huge, huge time, because this is happening in your first house. Your first house area of life is the house that's going to experience major karmic new growth and shifts over the next 6 months period of time. And what is the first house? The first house is the house of yourself, your identity, who you are as a person, how you portray yourself to the rest of the world. Your physical body as well, your physical appearance is a matter of the first house, but it's really the house of your identity and who you are. And so for Pisces rising, like, this is a huge time in your life. This is a time you're probably going to remember for a long time, the next 6 months, as there's going to be major new growth and karmic shifts in just you in general as a person. You in general as a person are going to evolve and shift and grow like you've never have before. So there definitely might be new things happening in your life, whether that's in your career, your family life, your friendship life, whatsoever. There's new changes happening, generally speaking, that are going to change you and definitely evolve you as a person in brand new ways. Like, you're gonna, at the end of the 6 months period, or at the end of the next year, technically, you're gonna identify yourself as something completely new. And you're really going to be portrayed by the external world as someone very different and completely new as well. So there is major shifts, growth happening in your identity, in yourself, in your core. So yeah, with a solar eclipse in the first house, it's tough to say exactly what could happen, because it could be anything. But what I can say, what I can guarantee, is it's gonna profoundly change you as a person, and there's gonna be new evolution, new karmic growth, in who you are as a person, your identity, but also just your general focus in life is really gonna grow. Definitely some major, major, major major karmic shifts happening for Pisces risings, new things happening that are going to change you completely as a person. And yeah, allow for that growth in a brand new way. So I'm wishing you the best of luck with that. Have a great eclipse season, and yeah, have a great next 6 months. Okay, so we're done all 12 signs. So I hope that this was understandable to all of you. I hope the information was expressed in a clear and concise way. Um, yeah, this is honestly a crazy eclipse season, with the first one being in Virgo and Pisces, really marking this new karmic beginning in these two areas of life, and the new growth happening in both areas of life for everyone. So I'm wishing you a great eclipse season. I'm wishing you a great next 6 months with these new energies coming in. I hope this was an enjoyable video, and I will see you all in my next one. So have a great rest of your day.